2.2 greatest common factor. I can find GCF.
So GCF is our short version for greatest common factor, right?
Yes.
Are all of you confident you can find GCF?
Yes.
Emma, thank you. All right, so greatest common factor is the biggest factor that two or more numbers have in common. Remember, the greatest common factor of any set of numbers can never be bigger than the
Smallest number given.
Okay, let's do that a little bit more enthusiastically, though. It can never be bigger than the
Smallest number.
Never be bigger than the smallest number. Good. All right, so finding the GCF. There are, like, you could go home and your parents could say, "What are you doing?" And you're going to say, "I'm finding the GCF." And your parents might say, "Well, why are you doing it that way?" And you're going to be like, "Mr. Podger said," and like, "Well, there's another way of doing it. You could use factor trees and da da da." Just do it this way, okay? Your parents just say, "You know what? I can do it. Just let me know." Okay? So there is another way. I'm totally aware. I don't think you need two different strategies because it'll just confuse you. So what we're going to do is we're going to find factor pairs, which is great practice for our multiplication anyways. We find factor pairs. Once we find all the factor pairs for both numbers or all three numbers or all four numbers, how many ever you're comparing, we circle, right? We circle if they're in common. So 10 has a 1 in common. Our 10 and 30 have 1 in common. 10 and 30 have 2 in common. 10 and 30 have 5 in common. 10 and 30 have 10 in common. So all of the factors of 10 actually are all the factors of 30 as well, or actually are factors of 30. If they don't have something in common, we cross them off, right?
Yes.
You end up with finding the biggest one. So A, B is another example where we circled and we crossed off. C just gives you 3 different numbers in which we're finding the greatest common factor. Remember, if there's 3 numbers, it has to be common in all 3 of them, right?
Yeah.
If it's common in 2 of them, it doesn't count, right? Okay, so like the number, what was it? The number 6 is common in 12. It's common in 24, but it's not common in 16, so it's not a greatest common factor for those 3 numbers. Okay. Questions?